name is Danielle. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to take you through Shojin cooking. Shojin cooking hails from Japan, more specifically the Buddhist temples of Japan, the Zen Buddhist temples that is. And it's a practice that is much in line with how modern eating is moving today. It's vegetarian, in fact it's vegan. Additionally, it's all about honoring in-season ingredients, eating locally, and eating in a way that minimizes waste and brings in gratitude into both the cooking and the eating process. I'm going to take you through a number of recipes. Usually, typically, if you're in a monastery, if they eat, a Zen Buddhist monastery that is, they will eat Shojin as a normal way of practice. And it's not going to be as robust as what I'm hopefully going to present today. It's generally a soup dish and a rice dish and maybe a vegetable dish. And that's about it, just 3 dishes. So today we're going to do a soup dish. We're going to do a eggplant vegetable dish. We're also going to do a tofu dish with some mushrooms. And we're going to do a carrot and sea vegetable salad as well. So to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and start with the soup, because the soup is generally always a staple of Shojin meal, and it's a very simple procedure to do the soup. So I've already got it started, so I'm going to walk you through that. So on my stovetop, I have started with making what's called a kumbu broth. And the kumbu broth is actually quite easy to do. You can see all the steam rising here. Is you take a piece of kumbu, which is a sea vegetable, and you're going to want to take a piece that's 12 inches long, and you soak it in the water. There's a quick method where you can go ahead and you put it in your pot, and you put 5 cups of water, and you bring it to a boil, and then you let it simmer for about 20 minutes to get the broth. If you have more time, another option is you take the same proportions of the kumbu and the water, and you go ahead and you let it soak for 2 hours, and then you bring it to a simmer for 10 minutes, and then that's it. So mine's been simmering for quite some time, so I'm going to pull the kumbu out of the broth here. And I made enough broth, we actually use it for our mushroom dish, which later on in the class. So this is what, I don't know if you can see the kumbu. When it starts out like this, quite dried and shriveled, and the flavor is released as it cooks for a long time. So I'm going to just go ahead and strain that out and get rid of it. And so I have a broth that, you know, is almost the color of my sweater, though it's a pale green, and it's quite sort of reminiscent of the sea, and saltiness definitely comes through. So the next thing I'm going to add, because right now I'm going to make a miso soup with an inori mushroom. So it's actually quite simple and it's delicious. So I'm going to go grab my other ingredients. So I've got 2 types of miso that are going in here. I've got 3 tablespoons of white miso, and then a tablespoon of some red miso. So I'm just going to plop that in. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to whisk this in until it's dissolved. So one of the things while you're cooking with the Shojin style is really cooking mindfully. So as I would be whisking, just, you know, watching as the miso slowly dissolves, you know, moving in a circular pattern, just being mindful of the task at hand. And as you can see, it's now changed colors. And the next really simple thing that we have to do is we have to add in our inori mushrooms. And the inori mushrooms, as you can see, are kind of light and crunchy. They're white, they're long and small. And so I'm going to pop those in here. And the heat of the stalk will just gently soften them. And then one of the really interesting things about Shojin cooking is all ingredients are held in the same level of esteem. It's about cultivating a sense of equanimity. So in the tradition of the monastery, the Buddhist monks would go out into the town, and they would have their bowls, and they would beg for food, and they would receive whatever was given to them with this real sense of gratitude and not wanting to waste any bit of food, because there was this gift, right? And it's the same idea as we cook in a Shojin style, is that we are holding the ingredients, whatever they may be, and we're trying to captivate what is there and really truly bring that out and excite the senses. And the food isn't necessarily dramatic or all about having lots of ingredients. It's about being simple presentation, simple flavors, and enjoying what is there. So I've got everything ready to go. So I'm going to put this in a bowl, and we're just about ready to go. And additionally, it seems to be from my research, also Shojin cooking is always presented in some sort of circular vessel. So I have all different bowls to use. So I'm going to ladle that in, making sure to get some mushrooms in each bite. And that completes our miso soup with Indori mushrooms, which are going to be our sort of first course, our first offering in cooking Shojin. So the next dish that we're going to make together is an eggplant dish. And the eggplant dish is right now it's currently fall, so one of the obligations of Shojin cooking is that you cook in season. So the ingredients that I've selected for today's menu all bring in ingredients that are easy to find during this autumn or fall season. So I've gone ahead and done some things in advance as to save you having to stay here with me for some of the more boring, laborious bits, but things have been done. And so I started off with 2 Japanese eggplant, which I cut into bite-sized pieces, and then I soaked for 5 minutes in water. Then went ahead and rinsed and lightly dried. And you have 2 options here. After you've soaked your eggplants, you can either go ahead and you can put them in a little bit of olive oil and you can saute them and simply move on to the next step, which I'll show you in a moment. Or what I did is I went ahead and I boiled them for 4 minutes in salted water, and I've drained them, which is what you see here. They're in this bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them in a dish for serving, and they're prepared very simply. You know, Shojin food really is about simplicity. This is monastic food. It's not about indulgence. It's about sustenance and gratitude for the life of the food that you're eating, right? With the plants and the vegetables, and really honoring that in the spirit of not harming. So I'm taking my eggplant and I'm just piling it into the bowl, and most of the bowls and all of what I've read and seen are very small portions, right? Because also because we're having 3 or 4 different things, so we don't need a ton. And then to go with the eggplant, there is a lemon flavored pickled plum sauce. And pickled plums are not things that are a common ingredient here in Toronto or in Canada. And it is a traditional Japanese ingredient, as you can see here. It's called a plum paste, and it's pickled. It has a very pungent flavor, very salty, very briny, really hitting some of those umami notes. It's very unique, and here's the particular brand that I was able to find very easily at a Japanese food store. So what we do is we take a tablespoon of the pickled plum paste. We're going to need a tablespoon and a half of lemon juice, a tablespoon of olive oil, a teaspoon of maple syrup. You can probably use some honey if you prefer that as a sweetener. That's perfectly fine. And a bit of salt. And we mix that all together. That's what I have in this bowl. And we just very deliberately, right, because we are cooking with a very deliberate, mindful practice, we're going to drizzle that over our eggplant. And that's it. We'll move on to the next recipe in just a moment. Now we're going to make our 3rd dish. It's walnut miso dressing, and it's going to be over some green beans, keeping with our seasonal fall dishes. And so the green beans I've already prepared earlier. All I've done here, as you can see, is I've got 4.5 ounces of green beans, which I've gone ahead and I've cut into about 1.5 inch segments. I've kept them all the same so that they are very pleasing in terms of your eating experience, also the presentation experience too. Just also that mindfulness piece of working with the vegetable in a way that is reverent and respectful, and it carries through. So what I'm going to do next is, over in a pan, right now I currently have warming just a teaspoon of vegetable oil, and I'm going to saute the green beans. So just right now I'm just swirling the oil in the pan. I'm going to drop those into a sizzle. And in the pan next to me, what I did in advance here is there's 60 grams of walnuts, which I went ahead and I toasted in the same pan. And then I went ahead and I ground the toasted walnuts and put those aside after I've ground them in the mortar and pestle. You could use a food processor if that works better for you. And then I used the same pan and I dissolved 2 tablespoons of sugar and 4 tablespoons of sake, and then 2 tablespoons of red miso. So what I found worked really well is I put my sugar in the pan, I add the sake, and I could see it dissolve in the pan. And then I added my miso, and it dissolved, and then lastly I added the walnut. And this is frying up really, really quickly, so I'm just going to go ahead and it's already browning. My pan is quite hot. Letting that saute out with some color. Shouldn't take too much longer. The green beans will be nice and crisp. Okay, that looks pretty good. And my pan was nice and hot. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to put this over here, and already have another round dish that is ready. And I'm going to go ahead and just place the green beans in here. Try to do it very mindfully. See if I can get them all lined up in sort of a neat little stack. Yep, there we go. Because presentation is actually important. Presentation should be orderly and neat, but not necessarily fussy. We want a very simple aesthetic. So I'm still stacking these up, as you can see, to make it like a neat little parcel. I think that's just the right amount. Maybe 2 more, just to make it a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and move these off to the side, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my walnut miso dressing. And I've got more here than what I need for this serving. And I just very garnish it neatly. On top, I'm making mine almost like a little row, like a bridge going over the green beans. Right, so there'll be lots of delicious, salty, nutty, rich goodness to go with my green beans. And green beans are actually a very popular dish in fall Shojin Ryori cooking. I'll go ahead and see that. I'm going to have that up. And there we have it. As you can see, it was quick, it was easy, and delicious, hopefully. So I don't know if you've already noticed, we're about to do our 4th dish at this point in our cooking class. And I've kind of moved up in degrees of difficulty with each dish. So this dish is going to probably have our most exotic, so to speak, ingredient that you're going to have to sort of seek out and find. This dish is called a hijiki, hopefully I'm getting the pronunciation right, teriyaki. And the hijiki looks like this, dry. Here, I was going to put it in my hand if you can see it. It's almost in little dried flakes. It's actually quite hard, and it's a sea vegetable. It smells very much like a seaweed. And what you need to do before you work with it is actually quite easy. You're just going to want to go ahead and place it into a bowl. I put in this bowl here. I used 10 grams of the seaweed, and you put it in water for 20 minutes and it sort of blooms. So right now I've done that, and you can see, let me hold it up for you, that expand it to about, I would say, at least 3 times its original size, and it's softened. So another interesting thing about hijiki is that it is thought to increase lustrous, thick, shiny hair. So you can tell your guests that and hopefully reap its benefits. So we prepare this quite simply. We also additionally have some carrots, which I went ahead and julienned. I've got 20 grams of carrots that are julienned and ready to go here. And I've got a tablespoon of vegetable oil, and I'm warming in my pan over here. And I'm going to go ahead and just swirl this around. Let me turn my heat a little bit. And I'm going to grab some tongs. I'm going to be moving around, and we're going to saute the carrots first. So we throw our carrots in, and we saute them for about 2 minutes. Just let them soften up before we add our other ingredients. So carrots are definitely a nice fall ingredient as well. And this teriyaki is going to have really beautiful color with the orange and the black. And part of the practice with the mori is really appreciating the contrast of colors that we're going to create. My carrots are just beginning to change. And we also have here our sauce, our teriyaki sauce. And our teriyaki sauce is really quite simple. It's going to be 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of mirin, and as you can see, what I'm trying to mix right now is the 2 tablespoons of sugar. So we're going to get that salty, sweet flavor that will be quite nice on the palate. So you really want to engage all of our senses, all of our 5 senses when we cook it in Shojin Ryori style. Shojin actually means energy or rigor, and Ryori means cuisine. That's the root of what we're doing. So we have about 2 minutes, so I'm just going to add in my hijiki here, and I'm going to saute this for another minute. You can hear it sizzling away, and it looks, just the colors of Halloween actually, with the orange, and the almost black of our seaweed here. Okay, so that's going very quickly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stir up my teriyaki sauce. I'm just going to add that to the pan. So a little bit of sizzle. Okay, I'm going to saute this. Let the carrots maybe absorb some of those nice seasonings, right, for the chicken dressing. Also part of the tradition of monastery eating is monks would only take just the right amount. There's a term called oriyaki, and it means just the right amount. So you would just take what you needed to sustain yourself. So if you're a smaller monk with a smaller appetite, you would only take a small portion of food. If you're a larger monk with a larger appetite, you take a bigger portion. But it's about that mindfulness piece of just not taking more than what is needed. Okay, this looks great. You can see it beginning to sort of thicken. It tells me the sauce is good. I'm going to take this off the pan. And I'm going to grab a spoon. You'll see me come up here really quickly to put it into my bowl. Another, again, it's part of the fun of getting ready for this class was actually going and finding bowls that would nicely go ahead and present my Shojin Ryori dishes. As you can see, this looks really beautiful against the blue and the white. I'm just going to pile this up neatly. Oh, it smells delicious. You're getting sort of that saltiness from the soy sauce coming through. You're getting the aromatics of the sea vegetable coming up and in, and sort of the mineral content. It's going to be delicious. So there we go. There is our 4th dish for today. As I promised, we're moving up in degrees of difficulty, and our last dish is a tofu dish with a mushroom sauce. So right now I'm going to go, I brought to a boil. You recall our kombu stock we made earlier, so I've got 1 cup and 2/3 in here with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of mirin, 2 tablespoons of sake, and a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. So I brought that to a boil, and what I'm going to add to that, as you'll see here, are some more julienne carrots, keeping with our season, and we've got a combination of shiitake and enoki mushrooms, which we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in there with our broth and our soy sauce and our mirin. And this is going to boil for a couple of minutes, about 3 to 4, and just going to go ahead and mix this up so that everything's in there. And while that boils, I just want to go ahead and show you how I julienne the carrots. If you don't have one of these at home, this is actually really quite helpful. It's called a julienne peeler, and it's like a traditional peeler, but there are little strings that kind of come across like that and will actually cut the carrots in small strips. So I will go ahead and just demo that so you can see that. Do a couple, and this is how it's working. I don't know if you can see my julienne pieces, and then what I do is I just trim these down to smaller pieces when I add them into soups or dishes or whatnot, but it's very handy and makes quick, precise work of any julienne job. It also be used on things like zucchini. It's quite helpful for squash. If you want to get some spirals in there, it's quite helpful. The other ingredient that we're going to be adding in a moment is some soft or some silken tofu, and I don't know if you can see, I wrapped that in a paper towel to absorb some extra liquid out of it, and I put it in my refrigerator to the top shelf about 30 minutes before you need it, so it begins to just sort of dry out some of the liquid, so we can add in the liquid of our sauce that is over there simmering, and we'll have the beauty of those flavors versus the water that's already in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut my tofu into, I'm going to say 4 pieces, so 4 equal looking pieces. I'm going to go check over on my sauce. Once that is cooked, we're going to add in the tofu. So my mushrooms are beginning to soften, and my carrots are beginning to soften, and so that's great. And that's been boiling this whole time, just in case there's any questions. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place the tofu into the pan, and I'm going to place it such that it's not touching. Okay, and it's going to absorb the beautiful flavor of our sauce. And I'm also going to lower the heat, and we're going to let this cook for 3 or 4 minutes while it softens. And right now, which we're going to add after our tofu has been cooking for a bit, is I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 4 tablespoons of room temperature water, and that helps to dissolve the cornstarch so we don't have a lumpy sauce. And one of the keys to working with cornstarch is you dissolve your cornstarch into whatever liquid, and that's at room temperature, and then you add it to your warm liquid so it properly dissolves, and then you bring that up to a boil or good simmer, and what that does is that will thicken your sauce, and it will do it such that it's not pasty or gluey, or you've got that sort of powdery mouthfeel, which is quite unpleasant. So that's one of the keys for working with cornstarch. We'll do that in a moment when our sauce is ready. One of the interesting things about Shojin cooking is there is a Buddhist monk by the name of Shojin who's from the 6th century. He wrote a book called Instructions to the Zen Cook, and a lot of the philosophy of Shojin comes from his writings, and he has some very interesting quotes. It's a very sort of short instruction pamphlet that he wrote actually to the head cook or the tenso of the monastery where he was living and working in a sense. And one of the quotes that really sticks in my mind is to be a cook is you should treat your ingredients like a parent. So with love and care and tenderness and that sort of nurturing idea that you're going to bring out the best in what you have and what you're working with, which I really think is quite lovely. And then there's another quote in there that really sticks with me, is this idea that you can bring out the Buddha is expressed in through one simple green leaf, right? That our cooking can be a manifestation of our spiritual practice. It's really about how we bring our attention to what we're doing, and we bring our attention in a very focused and precise way. And I say this right now as I'm neglecting my simmering tofu, but I know it's there. Actually, I'm going to go over, I'm going to flip it and sort of see how it's absorbing the sauce right now. And my spoon's here, so I'm going to give it a flip. And I can see that it's colored on the one side, so it's already absorbing some of that sauce, which is the flavor, right? And I'm going to flip the last one. Okay, it's looking quite good. And it tastes good too as well. And what I'm going to now do is, remember how I said when you add in your cornstarch, you add it, and then you're going to bring the temperature up, and you're going to see it thicken. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my temperature up, and I'm just going to add this in. And then the other thing about working with cornstarch is the color changes too once it is thickened. So I pour that all in, and it's already starting to simmer, which is great. I'm going to give a quick stir, and then I'm going to show you one other thing. Right, so right now it's kind of milky looking, and that's completely normal when you add cornstarch. And what will happen is it's already thickening. I can see it. That milky color kind of leaves a bit. So I'm just going to keep stirring this. This is actually going quite quickly. I'm moving it to my temperature down a wee bit. It's thickening. Oh, it looks great. Just want to make sure I cook enough so that I get that tastiness of the cornstarch out. Bubbling nicely. It's nice and thick. Okay. So I'm going to just turn this off. I think we're good to go. But I will show you something that I've done really quickly. Is I saved one of the green beans from our earlier dish. One of the principles of Shojin is not wasting items. So remember I said I'd cut them all into 1.5 inch lengths. So some of them were not quite the right length, so I would have had a little bit of waste. So I saved one, and I'm going to just garnish our tofu dish with the green bean on top and give it just a very color. Okay, so here we go. And I chose, again, remember the bowls are some in presentation counts, but they're simple. So I've had this bowl that has some white and some orange. And I thought it would sort of help pop the carrots in terms of the color and really hopefully make it pleasing for eating. So I think I'm going to start with taking out one of my tofu cubes, and then I'm going to take my mushrooms, my sauce, and I'm going to drape it over top. I've got like carrots. I could probably use some more mushrooms. Let's make some mushrooms are really beautiful. Okay, what am I doing here? That looks quite chunky and good. I think I'm going to actually just very deliberately lay another mushroom on top. I don't know if you can see that. And then, as you recall, I'm just going to take my julienne pieces of green bean and put them on top like that. And there we have it. We have mushrooms, a mushroom sauce with some soft tofu for our very last dish. Thank you so very much for joining me. I hope you've learned some new things and maybe a new approach to your cooking and eating, and bringing that attention and that care, and really being the parent, like Shojin said, in the kitchen when you do prepare food for your family. Be well and enjoy. Thank you.